I'm just being honest, Ethan, Aunt Linda said, her voice sugar-sweet but sharp enough to cut. No one in this family wants to throw money away on your little project.
She didn't even look at me as she spoke.
Her eyes were on Ryan, who was smirking behind his wine glass, as if he'd been waiting all night for this moment. I swallowed, trying to keep my face blank. It's not a project, I murmured, barely loud enough to hear myself. It's a company. Ryan let out a short, barking laugh. A company?
You don't even have an office, man.
You work in your garage. That's not a company, it's a hobby. Aunt Linda patted my hand like I was a child. Sweetheart, you need to be realistic. You're 30 years old. You think an app is going to pay your bills? Maybe it's time to grow up. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. Not my father, not my brother, not even my mother. I set my fork down slowly, listening to the quiet click as it hit the plate. Inside, something started to break. I used to think being quiet was a virtue. Growing up, I was the kid who didn't make trouble. I got decent grades, stayed out of fights, helped mom with dishes when Caleb snuck away to play video games, and I always made sure to let others speak first. That was the rule in our house. Let Ryan talk. Let Caleb shine. Let Aunt Linda lead the conversation. As my mom put it, even if it meant swallowing every small thought I had. But even back then, I knew my ideas mattered. I just didn't know how to say them loud enough to matter to anyone else. I remember the first time I built something of my own. I was 10. It was a clunky remote-controlled car I'd put together from old toys and spare parts from a broken VCR. It didn't go far, just across the porch and back, but I was proud. I ran into the living room, holding it up.
Dad,
Look, I made it from scratch. My father barely glanced up from his recliner. Did you do your homework? I nodded, excited.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you can't be wasting time on junk, Ethan. That stuff won't help you later. Focus on real skills. I remember standing there, holding my little invention, trying not to let the pride leak out of me like air from a balloon. Meanwhile, Caleb got a trophy in 4th grade soccer for most spirited, and the entire family drove 3 hours to see him play. That pattern never changed. Ryan, Aunt Linda's son, was the golden boy. He could do no wrong. Every holiday, he'd show up late, brag about some new investment, and everyone would hang on his every word. I just closed a deal with a fitness startup, he'd say, casually sipping wine. 10 times return if projections hold. Uncle Mike would laugh and clap him on the back. That's my boy. Then I'd mention something I was working on, a basic coding project in high school, a startup concept I had in college, and it would land like a bad joke. Apps. Aunt Linda once scoffed. People don't make real money with that stuff. You should think about law school like Ryan did. Or finance. Something solid. Ryan didn't even finish law school. But he looked the part, slick suits, firm handshake, practiced confidence. He knew how to own a room. I knew how to code a room of logic into a functioning back-end server, but that wasn't something you could show off at Thanksgiving. Even my own mom would sideline me with soft rejections. That's nice, honey, she'd say after I shared an idea. But maybe keep it as a side thing until it becomes something more secure. More secure. More serious. More respectable. I learned to smile and nod. I learned to bury my resentment in polite silence. I didn't want to be ungrateful. My parents worked hard. They paid for my books, bought me my first laptop, though only after a long lecture about not wasting it on nonsense. I just wanted their support, their belief. Not their money. Their belief. When I graduated from college, I didn't get a party, like Caleb. I didn't even get balloons. My mom made a lasagna and said, "Let's keep it small. You're not the type to enjoy a crowd anyway." Caleb's graduation had 70 people and a chocolate fountain. But the worst memory? It was the Christmas I told them about the app one was building. It was an idea I believed in. A real-time service review app that blended user feedback, live analytics, and business optimization, geared towards small business owners with no marketing budget. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was practical, scalable, and niche enough to grow. I built the MVP on my own time while juggling 2 jobs. I stayed up till 3 a.m. most nights learning how to integrate APIs, how to set up a secure backend, how to build a basic UI. So when I finally showed it to my dad on Christmas morning, I was nervous, but proud. He watched in silence, then muttered, "So it's like Yelp?" I swallowed. No, it's different. It gives real-time insights. It connects directly to POS systems and… Ethan, he interrupted, waving a hand. You don't have to impress me. You're smart. But this isn't a real future. You need to think long-term. Caleb just got an internship with Bank of America. That's the kind of path you should be on. I nodded slowly, feeling my insides fold into themselves.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't open my laptop again for 3 days. I can't count how many times I almost gave up. Every rejection felt like proof they were right. I'd show them a feature or a revenue projection, and they'd ask if I had a backup plan. But the truth is, I kept going because I didn't have a backup plan. I had a dream, a conviction that wouldn't let me sleep, a whisper in the back of my mind saying, "Build it anyway." Still, it was lonely. I remember the nights I came home from my second job, too tired to eat, and just sat on the floor of my studio apartment. I'd open my laptop, not because I wanted to code, but because coding was the only place I felt in control. The only space where I wasn't Ethan, the disappointment. There I was the architect of something real. Something that didn't judge me. Something that ran because I made it run. And when I finally got the prototype to a place I could demo, I thought, maybe this time, someone in my family would be proud. But when I showed it to Ryan last summer, he just grinned and said, "That's cute. When you're ready to pitch to real investors, let me know. I can show you how it's done." He never asked to see the pitch deck. When I told Aunt Linda I was bootstrapping it myself, she laughed. No one's serious bootstraps in this economy.
Come on, Ethan.
Be smart. Cut your losses. Cut your losses. That line haunted me. I heard it every time I hit a snag. Every time I doubted myself. Every time I stared at the wall wondering if I was being foolish. But I didn't stop. Because underneath all the hurt, I was angry. Not screaming, fiery anger. A quiet, simmering kind. The kind that fuels sleepless nights and endless revisions. The kind that whispers, "I'll show you." And, eventually,
I did.
But not before losing everything first. Not before feeling like the whole world had already made up its mind about me. Not before choosing to build my dream in silence, with no applause, no safety net, no cheerleaders. Just me. And the fire they gave me when they said, I wasn't enough. After that Christmas dinner where my idea was met with polite shrugs and quick dismissals, I thought I'd grown numb to it all. But rejection has a way of finding fresh places to hurt you. The following spring, I spent 6 months perfecting my pitch. I used every spare minute fine-tuning the deck, improving the prototype, testing the algorithms. I watched webinars on fundraising, read books on scaling SaaS businesses, memorized statistics about small business churn and retention. I believed, with everything in me, that if I could just show them how real this was, they would finally understand. They would finally see me not as the lost son or the dreamer, but as an entrepreneur worth betting on. So when Aunt Linda called to say they were hosting a small get-together for Ryan's birthday, I thought, maybe this is my chance. I knew Ryan would be there bragging about his new role in venture capital. Maybe if he saw the app in action, he'd take me seriously. Maybe he'd even offer advice or introduce me to someone. I arrived at their house with my laptop tucked under my arm. My palms were sweating so badly, I had to wipe them on my jeans. The living room was already full of voices: Ryan, Aunt Linda, Uncle Mike, my parents, a few of Ryan's colleagues. They all looked so comfortable, so certain of their place in the world. Ryan spotted me first. Hey man, he called across the room, a smirk tugging at his mouth. Long time no see. You still working on that? What was it again? The Yelp clone? I forced a smile. It's evolved a lot since then. Aunt Linda bustled over and kissed my cheek. Ethan, grab a drink. We were just talking about Ryan's new partnership. It's such an exciting time. I nodded, but my throat was tight. I waited for a lull in the conversation, then stepped closer to Ryan. I'd love to get your input on something, if you have a minute. His eyebrows lifted. Sure, he said, though his tone suggested the opposite. I set my laptop on the coffee table and opened it, the screen flickering to life. My heart thudded, so hard I felt a little dizzy. I've been building this platform to help small businesses manage customer feedback in real time. It integrates with their payment systems and automatically suggests improvements. I've signed up a few beta users, and I'm getting good traction. Ryan leaned back, folding his arms. Beta users? You mean like free trials? Right now, yes, I admitted. But it's part of the funnel. I'm projecting 20% conversion to paid subscriptions once we finish onboarding. He didn't look impressed. Okay. And you're funding this how? I've been bootstrapping, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm also applying for grants, and I'm planning to raise a seed round soon. Aunt Linda let out a delicate laugh. A seed round? Honey, you can't raise money if you don't even have paying customers. It's early, I said quietly. But the market need is real. Ryan's smile was pitying.
Ethan.
You know I love that you're trying. But this isn't how it works. You're not ready for investors. And honestly, he trailed off, glancing at my father. It feels irresponsible to let you believe otherwise. My father looked away, as if embarrassed to be associated with me. My mother studied the floor. I tried to swallow the hot flush rising at my neck. I'm not asking you to invest, I whispered. I was hoping for advice. Ryan sighed, sounding almost bored. My advice? Shut it down before you waste more time. The room was silent. Everyone could hear every word. Aunt Linda reached out and closed my laptop for me. The soft click was somehow louder than anything else. It's sweet that you're passionate, she said. But it's time to get serious about her life. I looked around the circle of faces. Not one person defended me. Not one person said, give him a chance. It was Caleb who finally broke the silence, but even he couldn't resist a dig. Maybe you should consider a job in IT or something. You know, while you figure this stuff out. I nodded slowly, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Thanks, I said, though I didn't mean it. Thanks for your honesty. I closed my laptop and picked it up. My hands were trembling. Ethan, my mother began. No, I said quietly. It's fine. I turned and walked out the front door, into the cool night. My car was parked down the street, and the walk felt like the longest of my life. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the dark windshield. For a long time, I didn't move. I tried to cry, but nothing came out. Just a dull ache behind my eyes. I thought of every time I'd hoped they'd see me. Every time I'd believed that if I worked harder, proved myself, showed them I was worth betting on, they'd finally respect me. And I realized something. I was done waiting. When I got home, I powered up my laptop. The battery icon glowed red, but I ignored it. I opened my notes and started typing. A plan. A timeline. A list of everything I would need to launch, with or without them. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Please don't be upset. We just want you to be realistic. I turned the phone face down. I worked until sunrise. That night, something in me shifted. Not a big, explosive rage, just a quiet, irrevocable decision. If they didn't believe in me, I would build it anyway. If they couldn't see my worth, I'd make it impossible to ignore. And I wouldn't ask them for anything ever again. The morning after the party, I deleted the family group chat. It wasn't an angry impulse. It wasn't even defiant. It just felt necessary. The messages were always the same anyway. Updates about Ryan's promotions, photos of Caleb's brunches, forwarded articles about hot careers for young professionals.
No one ever asked how my startup was going.
No one ever asked how I was doing. So I removed myself. Quietly. No warning, no dramatic exit message. And it felt good. Not the kind of good that makes you smile, but the kind that feels like pulling a thorn from your palm and watching the skin start to heal. That same day, I changed the lock screen on my phone to a post-it note I had taped above my desk. For words in all caps. Build in the dark. I took a long, honest look at what I had. a prototype that worked, 3 committed beta users, and a savings account that would last me for months if I lived carefully. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to keep going. So I stopped trying to convince people. I stopped updating my parents, stopped sharing ideas with Caleb, stopped asking Ryan for connections. I deleted LinkedIn. I archived every old email chain begging for mentorship, for introductions, for crumbs of belief. Then I got to work. I started waking up at 5 a.m. every morning. Not to read productivity hacks or drink lemon water, but to code. To think.
To design.
I built until my hands cramped. I debugged until my eyes burned. I sketched out user journeys on sticky notes and stuck them to the wall above my bed. I mapped out my ideal investor deck, even though I had no investors. I tested onboarding flows with the 3 beta users and actually listened to their pain points. Then I fixed them.
Fast.
There were no likes, no validation, no audience. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't building to impress anyone. I was building because I believed in the problem. And more importantly, I believed in myself. It was quiet work. And in that silence, something remarkable happened. My mind stopped begging for approval. I didn't realize how loud that hunger had been until it went quiet. Until I stopped imagining my father nodding in pride or Aunt Linda saying, "You proved us wrong." They weren't watching. And that was a gift. I went weeks without calling my parents. When my mom finally did check in, she left a voicemail. "Just wondering how things are. Ryan says you've been a little distant." I didn't call back. I stopped going to family dinners. I skipped Caleb's birthday. I didn't send a card. I didn't explain myself. I just disappeared from their narrative. They noticed. But they didn't understand. And I didn't owe them an explanation. The months passed. And somewhere in that silence, a small shift occurred. Not just in my heart, but in my code. My product got better. The UI became sleek, intuitive. A beta user referred me to someone else. Then another. Before long, I had 10 businesses actively using the platform. They weren't paying yet, but they were giving feedback. Real feedback. That was gold. Around this time, I reconnected with Noah Fields, an old friend from college who had become a product designer. He'd seen a post I shared months earlier and messaged me, "Still working on that customer insights tool?" I was hesitant at first. I didn't want to be vulnerable again. But something told me to respond. So I did. We hopped on a Zoom call, and I showed him the tool. "Holy crap," he said. "You actually built it. And this works?" I nodded. "It works." He leaned in. "Dude, this is good. Like, this could actually scale. Why aren't you raising funds?" "I've been told it's too early," I replied. "By who?" "A room full of suits who don't understand product market fit," he laughed. "Screw that. You don't need them. You need customers. Let's get this into the hands of 50 businesses." So we partnered. He redesigned the interface. I rebuilt the back end. We worked out of cafes, on lunch breaks, on weekends. I didn't post about it. I didn't update my parents. I didn't tell the family group chat because I wasn't in it anymore. And the silence grew sweeter with every passing day. Sometimes, at night, I'd think about all the times I'd tried to force belief out of people. All the years I'd begged for attention, for respect, for someone to see me. But no more. Now, my time wasn't spent asking for a seat at their table. I was building my own. One night in particular stands out. It was mid-November. Cold. The city lights flickered outside my window, and my heater made a low, tired hum. Noah and I had just wrapped a design sprint, and I'd finally uploaded the new build. I stared at the dashboard as 10, then 11, then 13 users logged in that week. Small numbers, yes, but real.
Not family.
Not friends. Not pity clicks. Strangers. People who didn't know me. People who didn't care about my last name or whether I was the responsible son or the quiet one. They only cared that the product worked, that it helped them. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's approval to feel proud. I was building in the dark. And the dark had never felt so powerful. It was a Wednesday when I first heard from Sofia Ramirez. I still remember the moment because it was so ordinary, me sitting in my tiny kitchen, eating instant noodles, trying to ignore the financial anxiety gnawing at my stomach. I had been calculating, again and again, exactly how many weeks my savings would last if none of the trial users converted to paid plans. That morning, Noah had sent a message. "Trust me, Ethan. This is going to work." But I wasn't sure I believed him yet. I wanted to. I just didn't know how to shake the voice of my family echoing in my head. "Cut your losses." Then my phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. For some reason, I answered it. "Hi, is this Ethan Parker?" A warm voice, lightly accented. "Yes," I said, wary. "This is Sophia Ramirez. I own Luna Cafe in Santa Rosa. I was referred to you by Jacob Kim. He said you built a feedback tool." My heart did a little leap. Jacob was one of my first beta users, a bakery owner who'd started using the app to track customer sentiment. I hadn't known he was telling people about it. "Yes," I managed. "That's right. I'd love to see a demo. I've been looking for something like this, and he said you were the real deal." I swallowed. The real deal. No one had ever said that to me before. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Of course. I can set up a call this week." "Perfect," she said. "I'm excited to see what you've built." We scheduled the demo for Friday. I spent the next 2 days cleaning up the dashboard, fixing little bugs, polishing every corner. I barely slept. Friday came, and I clicked into the video call a few minutes early. My palms were sweating the way they had when I'd tried to pitch to Ryan, but this felt different. Sophia didn't know me. She didn't care about my family's opinion. She just wanted a solution to her problem. When her face appeared on screen, dark hair in a low bun, bright green apron, I felt an unexpected surge of calm. "Hi, Ethan," she said, smiling. "Thanks for making time." "Of course," I said. "I'm glad you reached out." I walked her through everything: the dashboard, the sentiment analytics, the automated suggestions. She asked smart questions, took notes, and interrupted me twice to say, "This is brilliant." By the end, she was nodding enthusiastically. "Okay," she said. "How do I sign up?" I blinked. You want to start today?" She laughed. "Of course I do. This is exactly what I need. I'm tired of guessing what customers think. If Jacob trusts you, I do too." I felt something catch in my throat. I'd prepared for objections, hesitations, more delays. I hadn't prepared for someone to just believe me. "That's great," I said, voice a little rough. "I'll set you up." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Then I laid my head down on the table and laughed, quiet and shaky. It wasn't a $1 million deal. It was one cafe, one subscription. But it felt like the entire universe had just cracked open and let in a little light. 2 weeks later, Sophia sent me an email. "Ethan, I don't know if you realize how much you've helped me already. We used your app to collect feedback on our new menu, and it saved me from making a huge mistake. You got something really special here." Attached was a screenshot of her dashboard with bright green metrics I'd helped design. I forwarded it to Noah, who replied, "Told you. You are the real deal." I read that line over and over. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I printed Sophia's email, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my wallet. A tiny talisman. Proof that someone somewhere believed in what I was building. That same month, Ryan's birthday rolled around again. I didn't go to the party. But the following week, my mother called. "Ethan," she began, sounding cautious. We've been wondering if you're okay." "I'm fine," I said, and it was the truth. She hesitated. "I heard from Aunt Linda that you're working on something. A project." "It's not a project," I said softly. "It's a company." There was a long pause. "Is it going well?" she asked finally. I thought of Sophia. Of the dozen other small business owners who'd started using the platform. Of the invoices I'd finally sent. Of the quiet pride that had taken root inside me, growing stronger every day. "It's going," I said. "Better than you think." She exhaled. "That's good. We just want you to be happy." But I could hear it in her voice, that uneasy confusion. The suspicion that maybe, just maybe, she'd misjudged me. That maybe I hadn't been wasting my time. I didn't say any of that aloud. I didn't need to. I didn't owe her an explanation anymore. A few days later, Sophia posted about my company on LinkedIn. She didn't tag me, just shared a story about how a young entrepreneur with integrity and vision had helped her business thrive. She ended the post with a line that knocked the breath out of me. He didn't just build a product. He built trust. I sat there reading that sentence again and again. My heart thudded in my chest. Because she didn't know anything about my past, about the years of dismissal, the smirks, the be realistic speeches. She only knew what I'd built. For the first time, someone saw me not as the quiet one or the disappointment, but as a builder, a professional, someone worth believing in. A few of Sophia's connections liked the post. Then they messaged me. One was the owner of a fitness studio. Another managed a small chain of restaurants. They all had the same question. Can you show me what you've built? And with every message, every demo, every yes, I'd like to try it, something old and heavy inside me began to fall away. I realized it didn't matter who hadn't believed me, because I was finally surrounded by people who did. And none of them shared my last name. It started with a text from my mother. Saw a post about your business today, someone named Sophia? Looked impressive. Proud of you. I stared at the message for a long time. That was new. No backhanded warning. No talk of fallback plans. No caveats. Just proud of you. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. Gratitude? Suspicion? Anger? I replied with a simple, thanks, and left it at that. But that text was only the beginning. Within a week, I got an email from Aunt Linda. A perfectly worded note, dressed up like a compliment, but lined with strategy. Hi, Ethan. Just wanted to say I saw Sophia's post. Very classy. Ryan mentioned you're doing something with small business tech now. That's great. He said you've really come a long way. We'd love to reconnect sometime. Maybe have dinner? No pressure, of course. Just family. Smiley face. Warmly, Aunt Linda. I reread the email twice, stunned. Ryan mentioned me? The same Ryan who laughed when I called my startup a company? I didn't reply. 3 days later, I got a LinkedIn connection request from Ryan himself. Let's catch up soon. Might be synergies worth exploring. Synergies. It was the first time in years he'd messaged me directly. I didn't respond. I didn't even accept the request. But deep inside, I felt something shift. Like I was finally watching the mask slip. They didn't believe in me when I needed them. Now that someone else did, they suddenly wanted back in.
It wasn't about me.
It was about optics, about control, about keeping the family story intact. I said nothing. That weekend, I got a call from my dad. He hadn't called in weeks. Hey, kid, he said, like nothing had happened. Your mom's been showing me that article Sophia posted about your business. Looks like you've been busy. I have, I said flatly. There was a pause. I wanted to say, good job. You stuck with it. Thanks. Another pause. Then, maybe we could grab dinner sometime. Catch up. I'm busy right now, I said, not cruelly, just truthfully. Sure. Well, keep us in the loop. But I wouldn't, because I knew what this was. It wasn't an apology. It was damage control. And it got worse. One night, Noah forwarded me a screenshot. This your cousin? He asked. It was a LinkedIn post from Ryan, bragging about his early insights into a new sector and claiming he'd mentored a promising founder now gaining traction in the SMB analytics space. I felt sick.
He was talking about me.
The same guy who laughed in my face at Aunt Linda's house was now implying he had something to do with my success. I didn't respond to the post. I didn't comment, didn't call him out. But I took a screenshot. And I remembered. Because some betrayals don't need confrontation. They just need receipts. A week later, I got another message, this time from my mom. Sweetheart, I know things were said in the past. But we're really proud of you now. Your father was thinking, maybe this is a good time to bring everyone together again. Like a fresh start. Fresh start. I could almost hear Aunt Linda's voice behind it. Let's reset. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted to be included in the success story they once rejected. And maybe part of me wanted to give it to them, To finally hear them say the words I'd longed for all my life. We were wrong. You were right. But they wouldn't say that. They'd only ever say enough to look good, to reframe the story in a way that still made them comfortable.
So I didn't reply.
Instead, I pulled out Sophia's printed email from my wallet and read it again. You've got something really special here. That was real. About a month later, I launched our public beta. We crossed 100 active users. The feedback loop was tight, retention high. Small businesses were sending us thank you notes. Noah and I high-fived over Zoom. I treated myself to actual takeout. Then came the kicker. One morning, I opened my email to find a message with a subject line. Possible strategic partnership. It was from an early-stage investment firm based in Austin. One I'd reached out to nearly a year ago and been ignored by. Now they were very interested in exploring where your technology aligns with our goals. I sat back in my chair and smiled. Not because I needed their money, but because they finally saw what I'd seen all along. And they weren't the only ones. That same week, I got another email from a name I didn't recognize. Hi, Ethan. I'm a friend of Sophia's. She speaks very highly of you. I'm looking for help with a community-building app for women-owned businesses. I'd love to collaborate or even license your platform. Let me know if you're open. Camille *. I forwarded it to Noah, then sat back and exhaled. For so long, I'd been chasing their validation. Now it was arriving without me even asking for it. Later that night, my mom texted me again. Your cousin said he might fly in next month. Maybe you two could talk? I think he regrets some things. Regret? Maybe. But not enough to say sorry. Not enough to undo the years of mockery, the years of telling me to be realistic, the years of cold silence when I needed warmth the most. So I replied simply, there's nothing to talk about, and turned off my phone. Because this time, I wasn't playing their game.
They hadn't changed.
But I had. The first email came on a rainy Tuesday when I was too tired to feel much of anything. I'd been working 18-hour days for weeks, juggling support tickets and onboarding calls and late-night debugging sessions. My brain felt like wet cardboard. No spark left. Only the stubborn will to keep going. When I finally collapsed onto the couch, I opened my laptop more out of habit than hope. The subject line stopped me cold. Thank you, Ethan. I clicked it open. Hi, Ethan. You probably don't remember me. I'm Sophia's cousin. She told me about your platform last year, and I started using it at my flower shop. I never reached out because, well, I was embarrassed I couldn't afford much more than the starter plan. But I want you to know that your work made a difference. A big one. During the holidays, I used your surveys to tweak my gift packages, and it doubled my revenue. My husband and I finally paid off a loan we'd been carrying for years. I've never met you, but I feel like you've been cheering me on in the background, reminding me I'm not alone. You didn't just build a tool. You built hope. Thank you. Elena Ramirez. I read it once. Then twice. Then a third time, tears blurring the screen. For so long, I'd measured success in numbers, users, subscriptions, dollars in the bank. But this was something else entirely. This was proof that the work mattered. That all those nights I'd sat alone in front of a flickering monitor, telling myself to keep going, hadn't been in vain. I forwarded the email to Noah with a single line. This is why we do it. Later that week, I got another message, this time from Camille, the entrepreneur who'd reached out about a partnership. We'd just wrapped our second call, where she'd asked brilliant questions and suggested ways to adapt the platform for her community of women-owned businesses. After the call ended, she sent a follow-up note.
Ethan,
I hope you know you're building something extraordinary. It's rare to meet someone who's as committed to serving small businesses as you are. I've met a lot of founders. Most of them talk about changing the world, but you actually do the work. You care in a way that can't be faked. Whatever happens with our collaboration, I'm rooting for you. People like you deserve to win. Warmly,
Camille.
I read her words over and over, feeling something warm unfurl inside me. Something like pride, but gentler. It felt like being seen. Not for my last name, or my college degree, or whether I measured up to anyone else's expectations. Just for who I was. A few days later, Sophia called. I hadn't spoken to her directly in weeks. She'd been busy expanding Luna Cafe to a second location. "Hey, stranger," she said, her voice bright. "Got a minute? For you? Always." She laughed. "Well, I won't keep you long. I just wanted to share some good news." She told me her cafe had been featured in a regional business magazine, and in the article, she'd credited my platform as one of the tools that helped her grow. They asked how I kept up with customer trends, she said. I told them the truth. Your product changed everything for me. I felt my throat tighten. "Sophia, that means a lot. I hope you know," she went on, softer now, "that what you built has value far beyond metrics and dashboards. You made me feel like I mattered. Like my tiny cafe was worth listening to." I closed my eyes, pressing a hand to my chest. "You were," I said. "You always were." There was a pause, then she said, "You know, your family might not have seen it, but the rest of us do." I swallowed. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," she replied. "Just keep going." That night, I sat alone in my living room with all the lights off, listening to the rain against the window. For years, I'd chased a version of success that looked like Ryan's approval, my father's quiet nod, Aunt Linda's grudging respect. But here it was, success in a form I hadn't expected. A single mom who paid off her debt. A cafe owner who felt seen. A community builder who believed in me. And me finally believing in myself. No applause. No headlines. Just a slow, certain knowing that I'd built something real. The next morning, I woke up to find another email, this one from a bakery in Seattle. "Hi, Ethan. I just wanted to thank you for the amazing onboarding process. I've never felt so supported by a software company before. You and your team are incredible. My grandmother started this bakery 50 years ago. She passed away last year, and I've been trying to keep her legacy alive. Using your platform feels like having a partner who cares." She used to say, "The right people will find you." I think she was right. With gratitude. Maya Lu. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. The right people will find you. For so long, I'd been trying to convince the wrong people to see me. Now, the right ones were showing up without me having to ask. I printed out Maya's email, just like I'd printed Sophia's. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to Elena's note. Little reminders. Proof that kindness and dedication come full circle, even when you're sure they won't. That weekend, Noah and I met for coffee to celebrate crossing 200 active users. He raised his cup to me. "To Ethan," he said. "The most stubborn founder I know." I laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should," he said. "You stuck to what you believed, even when no one else did." I thought of Ryan's smirk. Aunt Linda's soft, pitying voice. My father's embarrassed silence. And then I thought of Sophia, Elena, Maya, Camille. I raised my cup back. To the ones who believed when it mattered. Noah smiled. To the ones who believed. We clinked cups, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. That night, as I walked home, the city lights blurred in the drizzle. I thought about how much had changed and how much hadn't. My family still hadn't apologized. They probably never would. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't building this company to prove them wrong. I was building it for all the people who'd been ignored, dismissed, underestimated. People like me. And people like Sophia. When I got home, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed a single sentence. "You didn't just save her business. You made her feel like she mattered." I read it over and over, the words like a quiet benediction. And for the first time in my life, I knew that was enough. It was a Thursday evening when the final attempt came. I was sitting in my office, the same little room where I'd spent so many sleepless nights building prototypes no one believed in. The walls were different now, lined with printed thank you notes, screenshots of happy customers, reminders that I'd built something worthwhile. I was about to shut my laptop when my phone buzzed. "Dad, 6:41 p.m., we'd like to stop by tomorrow. Just to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't aggressive or manipulative on the surface. It was simple,
Polite.
the kind of text you could almost mistake for care. But I knew better. They weren't coming to apologize. They were coming because they felt left behind, because the family narrative was slipping out of their control. And part of me, the old part that still wanted their approval, wanted to say yes, to let them in, to hear the words I'd always wanted. We were wrong.
We're sorry.
But the wiser part of me knew those words would never come. They'd say we're proud of you now, as if that erased everything. They'd say let's move forward, as if the past could be brushed aside with a smile and a handshake. They'd try to make me feel small again. I set the phone down, my heart thudding. For a moment, I closed my eyes and pictured it. My father in the doorway, my mother wringing her hands, Aunt Linda smiling that soft, placating smile. Let's not dwell on old wounds. We're all family after all. You should be grateful we care.
No.
I opened my eyes and felt a quiet certainty settle over me. No more. I picked up the phone and typed.
No.
I don't want to visit. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. For the first time, the word didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a doorway. The next morning, they tried again. Mom, 8:02 a.m., can we call then? Just to clear the air? I didn't respond. At noon, my father called twice. I watched the phone light up and go dark again. I didn't pick up. Later that afternoon, Aunt Linda sent an email. Ethan, I'm sorry you feel the need to keep your distance. We all said things in the past we regret. But holding on to bitterness isn't healthy, for anyone. Ryan and I will be in town next week. Let's have dinner, just a friendly meal. You'll feel better afterward. Warmly,
Linda.
I read it calmly. No anger. No sadness. Just clarity. I didn't feel bitterness. I felt relief. I didn't want a friendly meal. I wanted peace.
And peace meant distance.
So I clicked reply and typed. Thank you for reaching out. I'm not interested in meeting. I wish you well. I hit send and sat back in my chair. My heart was steady. My breathing even. Nothing in me wanted to run after them anymore. That night, I met Noah for dinner. We sat at a small table near the window, the city humming softly outside. He asked how I was feeling. I thought about it for a moment before answering. Good, I said simply. Really good. He raised an eyebrow. No second thoughts. I smiled. Not this time. He nodded. Then you're exactly where you need to be. When I got home, I turned off my phone. I poured a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching headlights smear across wet pavement. And for the first time, I felt completely free. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping they'd understand. I wasn't trying to fix what had never been mine to fix. I was just here, in this quiet, bright little moment I'd made for myself. A few days later, my mother sent one last text. We're sorry you feel this way. We only wanted the best for you. I read it once. And then I deleted it. No reply. No explanation. No final plea. Because some chapters don't need an epilogue. Some doors stay closed. And that's okay. That weekend, I went for a long walk through the neighborhood. The trees were greening up, little buds pushing through every branch. I thought of all the years I'd spent trying to bloom in barren soil, watering and watering, hoping something would grow. But the truth was, nothing could have grown there. I needed new ground. And I'd found it. When I got home, I made a pot of coffee and opened my laptop. There were emails waiting, customers with questions, new signups, people I hadn't met yet who were curious about what I'd built. And all at once, I felt it. Closure. Not the kind that comes from someone else admitting they were wrong. The kind that comes from realizing you don't need them to. The kind that comes from finally understanding that no isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. Late that night, I lay in bed listening to the hum of the city. I thought about my father's voice on the phone, my mother's texts, Aunt Linda's email, and I felt nothing but a soft, abiding peace. They would go on believing whatever they needed to believe. And I would go on living. I didn't have to be part of their story anymore. I was free to write my own. The next morning, when I turned my phone back on, there were no new messages. I smiled and started my day. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for witnessing. Because this story, it's not just mine. It belongs to anyone who's ever been doubted, dismissed, laughed at behind their back while they quietly kept going. Anyone who's been told, you're not the smart one. You're not the strong one. You're not the one we believe in. You know, I used to think success would come with applause. That one day, the people who underestimated me would suddenly look at me with awe and say, we were wrong. That never happened. There was no grand speech. No movie-style redemption arc. Just silence. And then, something better.
Peace.
Not because they changed, but because I did. I stopped waiting to be chosen. I stopped begging to be seen. I stopped watering dead roots hoping something would grow. And, instead, I built. Quietly. Imperfectly. Relentlessly. At first, I was building for them, for the validation, the recognition, the seat at their table. But somewhere along the way, it shifted. I started building for me, for the people who needed what I had to offer, for the ones who didn't care about my resume or my last name or whether I fit into some outdated family mold. I built for the small business owner who couldn't afford to guess anymore, for the founder who was scared but showed up anyway, for the version of me who once sat in a room full of doubters and kept going anyway. And maybe I built for you too. Because if you're watching this, maybe you know what it feels like. To be the one they underestimated.
To be the one they dismissed.
To be the one they left out of the story. But here's the truth. You were never meant to fit into their version of you. You were meant to grow beyond it. And growth, real growth, it doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like saying no, not in anger, but in clarity. Sometimes it looks like walking away and not looking back. You know what no one tells you? That healing doesn't come from hearing, we were wrong. It comes from realizing you were right to believe in yourself, even when no one else did. That forgiveness isn't something you give them, it's something you give yourself, by letting go of the need for their approval. And that success isn't the moment they clap for you. It's the moment you clap for yourself. I used to lie awake at night wondering what they thought of me. Now I lie awake with ideas, excitement, curiosity. I used to dread the holidays because I knew I'd feel invisible. Now I spend them with people who see me fully. People I chose.
People who chose me. So here's what I'll leave you with.
If they don't believe in you now, it's okay.
You don't need them to.
If they don't understand you, that's fine. You're not here to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. You're here to build. To create, to become, not for applause, not for acceptance, but because the world needs what only you can give it. Maybe you're not the favorite. Maybe you've never been picked first. Maybe you've spent your whole life shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. But I promise you, there's nothing wrong with you. There's never been anything wrong with you. Sometimes, not being chosen is the greatest gift of all, because it frees you to choose yourself. So go build. Go start the thing they said you weren't smart enough to start. Go move to the city they said you'd never make it in. Go launch the idea they said was too risky. And if you're scared, good. Do it anyway. Because fear doesn't mean stop. It means you're about to do something brave. One day they might try to come back. They might say, we always knew you had it in you. And you'll smile, quietly, knowing the truth. They didn't. But you did. And that was enough. So here's to the underestimated, the overlooked, the ones who weren't born with a seat at the table, but built their own anyway. You're not too much. You're not too intense. You're not too ambitious. You're just too real for people who pretend. Let them pretend. You build.